Brittany. Britt, I leave you with the audience. They're all eyes and ears for you.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to talk with all of you today. I feel like I've met most of you already during the networking and other sessions. Yes, my, I guess, alias is Brittany Wright in the chat. So I have been here listening and watching and trying to participate. So now's your chance. If you want to pay it back, I'd love to know in the chat what you have learned so far during Gamification Europe. What is sticking out to you and what might you still want to learn, if anything? I know I've picked up some really cool gamification titles I might go ask management for, like Chief Gamification Officer or Professor of Games. So what else are you all learning? How is the networking sessions going? Have you learned how to define action research? Do your learners have a motivation problem? What are you going to do? Any constraints? We heard positive constraints. I don't see anything coming in the chat window. So I hope you all have returned from break. I'm going to give it one more minute because they have given me extra time. I want to make sure everyone is here. All right, we're going to keep going. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself, although I feel Rob did a good job. I am from Microsoft. I've been there for 8 years now, over 8 years, but doing gamification for 4+ years. I actually work for the Microsoft Store Support team. So if you have been a customer of Microsoft and phoned in or chatted online, you might have talked to one of my learners, and thank you for doing so. I also have a few awards in the gamification world out there, some from Centrical, some from Microsoft itself. Some of the game creations that we've had put up against award competitions. Strongly encourage you to do that, by the way, because that's how the rest of us learn. And we figure out your use cases and are able to learn right alongside you and implement them on our own. I did work with Sententia Gamification. They're out of Texas in the US. This is a wonderful certification program if you're looking to learn more. There's 3 levels. You start at the beginning, you learn all about game mechanics and personas and how to make your learning for the actual learner and not just for yourself. Then you move into level 2, where you're able to test out ideas, go through use cases, and start your thinking process behind what mechanics might work for your learners. And then level 3, you actually implement and deliver a gamified learning program, which is really cool to do. So again, that's Sententia Gamification. And I'm a soon-to-be author. I talked a little bit about that in networking. We're working through the hurdles of publishing right now and editing. And as Rob mentioned, it's quite a small company that I work for. So there's a few hurdles we need to get around of what can be said and how. And once I figure that out, I'll produce the book for you. But we're going to go over the bones of the book today, which is a model and how you can actually follow the plan I put in place to make gamification a success at your own company. And hopefully you'll learn something new or pick up some ideas and overall gain the confidence, if you haven't already started gamification, to go ahead and go out there and start it. I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have a husband, 6-year-old daughter, and we did rescue a Great Dane. He is now 3 years old. His name is JJ. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. I see the chat starting, so I do believe we're back. Yes, Monica is Sententia Gamification, and I will keep an eye on the chat as best I can as we move forward here. So now that you're here, let's try this one more time. Please answer into the chat. What is the top challenge that you face with your employees? Doesn't have to be learning related per se. What's just the top challenge that you're currently facing? I know for us, it is lack of engagement. We definitely have a need to practice skills. I've heard a lot about that during the presentations today. I love how Fernando said that play is training for the unexpected. Of course, Mark said it, but Fernando repeated it. So there is a need to actually practice so that things are less unexpected. What are other things? Estimating the task time. Yes, that can be very hard to define for sure, but you do get better again with practice. You'll be able to estimate and identify risk and set baselines. Great example. Anyone else have a challenge with your employees? Game versus gamification. Yeah, another big one is game-based learning versus gamification. So it is hard to bear down to the definition. I will encourage you to make sure you have a goal in mind, what you're actually trying to solve for or what outcome you're wanting from either of those things. And then it makes it a little bit easier to see, is this a one-off game experience where the learning might come and it will be fine? Or is this like a continuous, let's implement gamification elements and mechanics and go forth and keep going and power on? Any others? All right, the reason I ask is, of course, I want to identify what my problems were. And I want to talk to you and be open and honest today about what Microsoft Store support has seen. So ours were a need for confidence for sure. We needed to retain knowledge as well. And then, oh goodness, this pandemic, we needed a way to boost some morale. So I promise I won't read any other slides to you, but I do want to take a moment because I feel like I wrote it so well that I will encourage you, I will inform you that our challenge was engage employees in continuous learning to ensure that knowledge is retained, to boost their confidence, to deliver top quality customer service, but also to connect the learners during an unprecedented time where contact center work was being done from their home. So that's where we were. I'm happy to say that by implementing game-based learning, which was done before pandemic, so they were used to the tool that we use for gamification, they were used to the gamified experience, but we were able to use it to address these three issues. And we achieved 97% engagement. So the entire 2 years of this pandemic, we've had 97% engagement in our gamified learning experience. Most of them being a sign in at the beginning of their shift and keep it open because they expect notifications to pop up, new missions to be released. There's a conversation channel where they can be in contact with their team, all built into the program. So they like to keep it up and open. I will let you know that engagement is not just logging in. You have to do something. You have to complete a mission. You have to go through one of those notifications. You might send a kudo to a friend, which has points behind the kudo for sending it and for receiving it. So these things have to happen in order for you to be marked as engaged for the day. Likewise, we have a customer satisfaction rating. We want all of you, our customers, to be at least 4.5 stars out of 5 satisfied. And we struggled pre-pandemic anyway to get to 4.5 and to maintain it. A lot of our sites around 4.3. So we really focused on how do we do the retention of knowledge. The way that we did it is by having a pool of questions, and the tool was able to send them 5 questions every Monday. I call it Microsoft Monday because I like alliteration. And they know to expect the 5 questions are coming, but the AI behind the tool uses a tag system. So if I tag it Surface or Xbox or Windows or Office, then the tool starts to identify if the learner is good with that tag. If they're good with it, they see less of that questions from that tag. And if they're not so good with it, they see more questions from that tag. And this allowed us to keep that retention of knowledge. For the record, the questions in our pool came from the actual missions, like the longer missions that have some resources, maybe a video learning, a simulation attached. They're just kind of, you check a box and you want it to go to the pool and it has the right tag and it all works behind the scenes. So really cool gamified experience there as the game is still happening in control of these missions. So we are now at 4.5 consistently, if not exceeding expectations, and that's 8 of our contact centers around the world, all 8 of our contact centers around the world. I think most importantly for me, though, is the fact that confidence is up. So one cool thing about the tool we use, we're allowed to survey our employees. So I did this using the agree, disagree, somewhat agree kind of method. And I asked, do you feel more confident to do your job because of game time, which is what we call our gamified learning experience? And 79% said that they did agree. Matter of fact, we had one lady that was leaving for maternity leave for an extended, she's probably going to be a stay-at-home mom for a few years, so completely leaving. And in her exit interview, she reminded us that she hopes when she gets a new job, they'll have something like game time, that it just kept her abreast with those best practices and what she should be doing. She felt very confident because of having that gamified learning system. So with that being in place, I have to just go ahead and ask, do you want to know how we do it? Would you like to know how we set up our gamified learning program? Or are there any struggles that you're currently having that we could potentially address? I'm going to go ahead and show you how we set it up, hoping that someone is saying yes. And I'm going to take one quick look over to make sure there's no questions already. Awesome. Yes, accountability is huge. All right, Victoria said yes. So let's show Victoria, and I hope the rest of you will join with us. All right, this is my model for gamified learning. As I mentioned before, I wished that the book would be ready for you to take today. It is not yet, but follow me on LinkedIn so you'll know when it is. This is the model that the book dives into. So we won't dive too far today, but I will give you a quick summary of how we set up our program and keep the wheels running. Don't worry about it being small. We're going to go into each one. Okay, here we go. All right, so first and foremost, you've got to identify who's going to do all the things. So you need a program management team of people. This is going to be the people that are invested in the content itself. And you need to dedicate that time that they are going to focus on a specific task. So as I move through the slides, we'll talk about the tasks that are at hand, and you'll start to realize, all right, we would need a person for that, a person for this, and these are not new people. These are people you already have working that need to take on these actions and the ownership of these actions. We like to do something like, okay, every Monday, beginning of your day, that's when we think about gamified learning, right? Some kind of block of time where you know that's the one thing that you are focused on. You also have to manage the actual content and then, of course, the learners too and their experience. But we'll get a little bit more into that as well. Moving right along, you're going to determine who's going to manage it. So you, again, have the people closest to the ideas of the content. You know, they want to see learning for certain areas where improvement is needed, but you're also going to have external people, and that might still be in your company, but it's just the supporting staff. Sometimes that's HR, right? HR might need to land a new policy. You might have a team of engineers that are going to release a new tool, and they're like, please do a simulation, teach them how to use the tool, walk through the mechanics, whatever it might be. So again, those might be actual company employees, but external to your actual team there. And then if you have multiple kind of what I call organization units, multiple different teams within your game, you might have game administrators, which is something that I do. So at each of the contact centers, I have someone kind of closely overlooking what their performance needs might be and so forth. All of this, again, went into determining why you would have this gamified learning experience anyways. Moving right along, you do need someone that's going to look at the analytics and get the value out of what you're doing, right? So this might be looking at the targets that you actually have, those OKRs, KPIs, right? And identifying, okay, which one you might want to influence with this gamified learning. And it might also be pulling that data into whatever tool you decide to use. Our tool does allow us to pull data in so they can see their learning right up against customer satisfaction, for example. You also need to implement things, like I said, with our pool of questions. I do have to check it. If anyone is a Microsoft fan, our product lineup changes every once in a while. So if it's no longer a Surface Pro 7, but a Pro 8, I need to go change the pool of questions, right, to reflect products they're actually selling and still need to know about. And then, of course, for us, it was a huge need to practice skills. I mentioned this at the beginning, but because we asked them to know so many products and we want them to have soft skills and be empathetic for all of you and accountable and resourceful, then it needs the ability to see, are they actually able to do those things? And again, back to like Fernando said earlier, I kind of want to avoid the unexpected. I'm not such a big fan. So we use simulations, right? We'll implement a simulation where they're walking through a customer interaction and they're able to make not so good choices and really good choices. And when they make the not so good choices in the simulation, there's not only a performance bar, but there's those live tips and hints that get them back on the preferred track of what would be a better customer satisfaction example. Okay, well, so train of thought mid-sentence. So once you know why you need the learning, then you're going to create and deliver the learning, but you're going to need to call in a maintenance person because it doesn't stop there. What do I mean by this? Well, obviously, you're going to have some kind of rhythm of business, right? Are you going to meet weekly with those people that are invested and have action items? Are you going to meet with the game admins and coach them? Or are you just going to leave them on their own to do it? So you might have some kind of a calls cadence, for example. The maintenance is similar to what I talked about, checking analytics, checking for the completion of your missions, checking to see if things are being done successfully, like we heard about in the last presentation. Is it even working, right? Are they trying to cheat the system? So you need someone keeping an eye on that. And then you also need your program innovation. So after you've been in, I would say 3 months or so, you can start to add more gamified elements. And we'll talk about that in a second. But you don't want to do everything up front. If you pick a gamified learning tool and they're like, we have a store, we have XYZ, and you open it all at the beginning, what surprise and delight do you save for later? How do you keep it interesting? So you do innovation, slow and steady, not all at once. And then, of course, a checks and balance system. This is very basic, but you need to go back and revisit each step along the model to make sure that those performance needs are still relevant, to make sure the learners are still gaining benefit, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. We're almost done with the model. I do want to take a minute to talk about the gamified aspects that we use. So I talked about tags. We've already mentioned it. That's how we identify what our questions are even about. Product tags are one, but your company might just have policy as a tag, or anything that is related to the job, safety, security, who knows? And then when you're incorporating your game mechanics, you also want to do this in a slow method so that you don't overwhelm the learner, but also that you don't underwhelm them. So you save something for a little bit down the road. Let's take a quick moment to ask in the window, what is your favorite game mechanic to use? I'll go ahead and tell you that mine is surprise and delight, as mentioned. I love when we can, go from one level to the next. I'll pop in a mini game, not every level, but maybe between level 5 and 6, right? I'll pop in a mini game that's a reward for having made it to level 6. That might be like a little pinball experience for those of us that like classic games. You can also have surprise and delight in the sense that not every mission has a reward assigned. Maybe every mission has points, but not a reward. Well, then there's one mission, they get to the either beginning or end. You tell them that there is a reward involved for completion to a certain degree, right? Maybe 90% accuracy, and you'll get said reward. We do have a store that's implemented in our game platform at this point. So there are rewards that are directly associated with the game. They can literally click right over, use the points that they've earned to purchase right from the store, which is really cool. And I will say that even in our work from home setup, we have found ways to do things that cost zero money. One of the things I like to do is offer myself up. They get to chat with me for a certain amount. I think I sold for 100 points last time, but they can come and ask me career questions and talk to me. And one of the best things we do, and we see huge value in, is we let them create content. They will actually use their their virtual currency to purchase the ability to go make a simulation or a mini game and give back to the rest of the learners. So super, super cool that they do this. I'm going to check. So we've got some power ups. Love it. Keeping everyone in the flow, gemstones, power up. So you guys are like me. You like that little Easter egg that is hidden in there for them to find. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Of course, you have your praise. So this is going to be your badges, your kudos, things like that do help. They're kind of old school in sense, right? We're all used to them. But if you get to where you can actually customize them and they don't seem expected again, then that's when they're really going to work. So just out of the blue, a manager sends one, or even if you implement peer-to-peer kudos, very cool way to get the team connected and encouraging one another. And last but not least, you want to diversify your content, okay? You cannot just quiz. You'll get nowhere. So we do use various video learnings. We have simulations. We also step in sometimes and do mini games in the form of like Jeopardy and having the questions that way. And of course, you're flipping the tile and gaining points based on certain things, right? And those are quite challenging as well. Okay, let's take a deep breath together. One big deep breath. We are almost done here with the model itself, but not to say that you have to know how you are defining your victory. We've talked a lot today in this conference about, is it actually working? Is there any reason behind this? So this is picking those actual operational targets to work against. Like I said, customer satisfaction is one we want to see improved. But we have used game experimentation to see if we could change the behaviors with empathetic language. You know, don't say things like unfortunately in your sales pitch because it already sounds negative, right? So behavior changes can come from this as well. So I would encourage you to think about the things here on the slide. So what improvements your team wants to see, what customer impact do you hope to have? Is there collaboration that you're trying to foster? And can you evaluate and return back to that determined needs slide? And is it still relevant, right? So if not, stop doing it. And we have had experiments fail for the record, and we've decided, all right, this did not land well. We have to come at it from a brand new angle. I'm looking to see. Peer kudos are amazing, I will say. The tool that we use is called Centrical, Centrical. It is out of Israel, and they also have offices in New York. And the tool there gives them a template for the peer-to-peer kudos. And that's kind of the way of monitoring so that you don't have, it's not just about slang, but in general, inappropriate conversation happening through that one aspect. So there are templates. So they'll be like, hey, you really pulled the team on this one. Or, you know, I noticed that you've put in extra work this week or things like that. So they are templated phrases that you can send peer-to-peer, and you get the game master gets to determine, but you get a certain amount of points for sending it as well as for receiving it. So some of the times it's that thing that boosts you up in the leaderboard as well, because you didn't just do all the missions, you also got a kudos along the way. Always go beyond the quiz. All right. So the last slide that I have for you today is just about the actual evaluation process in general. I strongly encourage you all to adapt a mindset of fail to learn, okay? Fail to learn. And the reason that I say this is because you will grow from every failure that you have. And it's actually quite easy to fail with gamification in the sense of the learners not feeling demotivated by it, because we all are going to fail in a game, right? When you're playing a basic board game, someone wins and someone loses. Hopefully the loser isn't completely defeated by this, but it just gives them that ability to push a little bit harder next time, look a little bit more into the strategy next time, and hopefully be a winner somewhere along the line. So we fail to grow. We've done this by implementing A/B experimentation. We take a group of learners that are the same. They're all working at home or they're all in office. They're supporting the same market, et cetera, so that there's not outliers, right, influencing if something works or not. And then we have an experiment group and a control group. So the experiment group is going to get the learning. The control group is not. And then after X amount of time, we see if a behavior was changed, if there is an operational target improvement amongst those that did get the learning versus those that did not, and so forth. So strongly encourage you to do this as well. My own Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, has been quoted by saying, never stop learning, always learn, because you stop doing useful things if you're not learning. So again, if you did not already start gamification for your employees or for your learners, I hope today gave you a little bit of confidence to push through and go ahead and get started. I will be happy to release these slides. You can link out to me on LinkedIn if you want to. And I can share them back with you. But I do feel like this model can be taken and used at much smaller a company. It does not have to be a huge company for it to work. The overall aspect is just manage the program, identify why you want, why you need the learning, what your goal is with the learning, and then go get it, right? Use those game elements and the ability to play for fun, and make learning fun. Okay. That is all that I had for you today. We do have a little bit of time for questions before we head to the panel. How long does it take to get to this point? So, Bernardo, what I actually have seen is it can be done much faster if you take the time to plan up front. I always tell people to take at least 2 months of that planning period, because you also want to start with content already made. I try to be a month ahead with my content, and then just add in things that change throughout. So I would say 2 months to plan, and then you can pop right back in to getting started. And the getting started, you'd have to work with whatever tool you're using, whatever program you're going to use, right? There might be some lead time in getting set up with that. Now, getting us to the 97% engagement took an entire year and a half. Way pre-COVID, 4 years ago. We started with about 52% just out the gate engagement, so about half of our employees. But we did have to pull and hurdle in the rest of them to get the buy-in, to get up to where we are now 97% consistently, month over month and year over year now.